Welcome to the Michigan Runner Show. Join us each time as we explore the people, the places, and the events that shape our great sport.
Well, the U.S. Olympic marathon trials are over. They were in Atlanta, and Gary Morgan was there. How about those hills?
They were mighty big, to say the least. I did my trials there in 1996, and we did not do a course they did, but even there was hills where I was at. And then I ran the 5K on Sunday, so I got a 3-mile test of what they had to do for 26 miles. So I know there was Atlanta's a hilly city, and they had to work overtime. Plus, there was some wind out there on top of that. So the times everybody posted were definitely impressive, to say the least.
Given the fact that there was that much wind, that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, in certain places. But, as the athletes said in the press conference afterwards, you thought, you'd have a tailwind, but a lot of times you didn't get that tailwind and be hitting you on the side. But, at least, the times are really good for conditions. So, it goes to show how strong the guys we have going. And obviously the cream rise to the top. So it was impressive how they finished on that course with those type of times.
Well, the top people, both men and women, really had some significant Michigan connections. Jake Riley, for example, was second. Let's talk about Jake.
Well, it's interesting. I interviewed him at the Club Cross Country Championships, and I believe that was 6 or 7 years ago. And that's when he won the club cross country, and he was an impressive race then. And I thought, hey, this young man's got some real potential. And he faded off, and then he's no longer with the Hansons. And then all of a sudden, he made a big comeback at Chicago Marathon last year, and top American finisher. And so he was back in the hunt. So he definitely was looking to have a great chance to make the team with what he did in Chicago. But he went through a divorce and a few other things here and some major injuries, so he disappeared for a long time. That was not his intent, but that's the way it worked. And then he moved out to Colorado and started being coached out there, and everything came together. And then Desi in the obviously one of America's best marathoners ever. She is just so solid and just missed making the team, getting fourth place. But another 227. She has run so many of those 224, 227, 222. Just solid there year after year after year. Definitely a great runner. And I'm sure there's a good chance we'll probably see her in 4 more years. So I could believe that.
I would imagine so. She's been pretty terrific. And there's a couple people I wanted to mention that 2 women on the team, both were in their 4th Olympic trials. One was Dot McMahon.
Okay, yes. And I did not see her, but that's impressive to go in other Olympic trials. It's years of dedication and hard work to stay at that, national level. And Dot's well over 40 years old, so that's impressive that she was just to be there again was good.
Right. Just to make the trials itself is a huge accomplishment when you're, over 40?
Oh, for sure. I did that a couple times in my 40s, and took a lot more work than in my 20s, to say the least. Yep.
Well, the other one who's kind of interesting is Sharon Thompson. As Sharon Dinkey, she ran for Grand Blanc and then ran for Tennessee, and this is her 4th Olympics also.
Oh, awesome. Well, I did not know her, but once again, it's a true testament to see athletes out there into their 40s and doing their 4th Olympic trials or more, to go on for that many years and to stay in that good a shape. And obviously they're doing it every day after work, because you're not getting a paycheck. I know how all that works.
Well, it's kind of interesting because we had some solid other people, a couple of familiar names. Remember Grant Fisher?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm. Did he run?
25th.
Well, he's a pretty young man. I'm surprised he's running the Olympic trials. with his speed and whatever. Of course, I don't know how his whole college career, but I would have thought he'd be. But I'm sure he's still working towards the trials. And it was so he ran it. Well, God bless him that some of these guys, and of course there are some top marathoners who are only, especially from Kenya, who are only 18 and 20 years old, and they're running 2:10. So, but the marathons are big paydays, and that's why a lot of young people are going into them instead of staying on the track.
Well, it was fun seeing Grant because he's a 5K guy, having won in Foot Locker, so that's a big jump.
Well, most certainly is, and I would think that he'd work longer on his track career. But, some of these guys can go from marathon and back down and run on the track and be just as fast as they ever were. So we will see what he decides to do for the Olympic trials this summer.
Another one that was fun to see was Nate Martin from Spring Arbor. He ran 2:21:26, which isn't shabby for.
No, that's on that course. That 2:21 was a very impressive time. It was, like I said, it's an ungodly tough day, and the guys are. It was, as I've watched this sport for years, the guys who are at the top of the game, they don't miss much. They don't run much slower on a course like this than they would on a flat course. So, even Galen and Abdi and even Jake, they were only 3 or 4 minutes from their PRs, so they didn't lose much, and that seems to show even with the women. And they're only 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes from their PRs, so they don't. When you're in top-notch shape, you don't lose much on the hills.
Well, it was an amazing number of women who ran that race. It was like upwards of 400.
Yeah, almost 500 ran, and that was impressive. And the woman who took second, if you had read up, she had never run a marathon. But once again, she had credentials, a long list. She was a 4-time All-American at Notre Dame. So that means she's a top-notch runner. And then she playing this right, she ran in Houston to qualify with, I think, a 1:09:45 in the half marathon, which puts her right up towards the front of the women. Our top women are running 1:08, but to run 1:09, but then to come back with what she just did here, she's got some real potential at the Olympics. But, you never know. Sometimes you have this great race. It's hard to predict everything. Going into this thing, I was picking Jared Ward, and he fell apart. And, of course, Galen's always up there. And I thought Jake would have a good shot at it. For the women, I was picking Desi, and she just missed it. The other women, I really didn't know. And then I'm finding out 2 of those women are from Kenya, and one of them was an Olympic silver medalist in 2012, probably in the 10,000. So she's already an Olympic level runner. So, and the other Kenyan, she obviously had to be a top-notch runner. So they were coming in with some big credentials at the top already. So they just had to extend it out, and they were able to do it. So they weren't coming in somewhere in the middle and moving up. They had high, definitely potential to be right at the top as they did.
In fact, you mentioned the runner from Notre Dame. Her name is Molly Seidel. You got to watch somebody who runs her first marathon at that level.
Well, it is. It was amazing. But she'd run a 1:09, so she was, better than probably, once again, 98% of the runners coming in straight off the top. If she had even run a marathon, you run a 1:09, you double that, and that's well below 2:30 right there. So she had that potential to be there, and so you knew that. But for her to do it at Houston and then come back, wow, I couldn't believe it. I'm looking where she qualified. Oh, she was qualified down there, but she's had some, injury, some other issues long before this. But for her to do it that day, you never know. That's why we have the Olympic trials. And that's America. Anybody at any time can move up and do something great on a certain day. And that's why we have the Olympic trials in the USA. in all our sports. We don't have some committee picking them. Other countries, they pick their athletes long before the trials. We do it the right way. We have our trial, and our best athletes, top 3 go. So, and that's the way it should be.
Well, it's an interesting discussion always because the U.S. picks the top 3 on that day.
Right.
They could have an off day. Something can interfere, like an injury or whatever, but you got to have it on that day. But that's actually what happens in the Olympics. So be it.
Right, and, we must be doing it right because we win more medals than anybody else. So we must be doing it right. Everybody else says we should do it like Britain or Canada or Australia, but we must be doing it right because we're winning the most medals. So we're sending the best team, maybe not in every event, but as a whole, we always win the most medals, so we're doing it right. And, of course, that's why we're the USA, a democracy. And our athletes have a lot of voice in what goes on, which isn't true in other countries. And we demand to have trials. And we've done it like this forever, and it's worked. And it's truly exciting to have the athletes who can at least try out for the team instead of just picking it like, saying here, or you got to do some other marathon. We had it, and it's a big event. And it's exciting. Truthfully, it's just like being at the Olympics. All the pressure's on. You got to perform, or you don't get the medal.
Well, I want to mention a couple people who have been participated in the trials themselves, and they're coaches now, and that's Ben Rosario and Tim Bro.
Yes. And Tim, of course, he was Olympian in the shorter, just at the 5K, and he's a coach and coordinator. I talked to him before. We had a little event with Saucony at one of the running stores, and he brought, and now he's helping to coach some of the athletes and coordinating everything with them, and he's enjoying that, and he's good at it. He understands training, definitely, definitely really a great guy, and the athletes can relate to him on what he does and everything like that. So that's kind of a great thing he's doing. And I really don't know Ben, but anybody who's competed at this level, and then if you're coaching athletes, you know what to tell them, what's really going on.
Well, Ben was a member of that giant Hanson's contingent in Birmingham in 2000, whatever it was, 2004.
Okay, well, then hard to believe. It was funny. We had 2004. I saw Kevin Hansen and his daughter. And Abdi walked up, and this was before the half marathon on Sunday morning, and 5K, and he came up and he said, you're on your. It's been 20 years you've been on the Olympics, and he said, well, I remember his daughter walked up. Kevin's daughter walked up and said, well, I remember when she was only this big and you were carrying her. So it's been 20 years of Olympics, and that's true. He's on his 5th Olympic team, Abdi. So, and 2004 seemed like a long time ago, but time goes by quickly, and if he's coaching now, that's probably about right. He was in his prime in his 20s. Now he's probably 40-something coaching, so that's a good thing.
Well, it's fun to see people pop up in different roles, and you've covered the trials how many times now? Quite a few?
Since I've been to going to the marathon trials, at least one of them, since 2004. Of course, I did all my track and field stuff, but I've been going to the trials since 2004 when I saw the women compete in St. Louis. So I've been in then 2007, and I've covered, I've been to so many different things over the years, but I've seen how it all works, and the people you think are going to make it many times don't. So that's true of every sport. You always have somebody new come up that you least expect, and then there's always a veteran who's been out there forever, like Abdi, which is he's not going to do it, but he did it. But I knew Abdi could do it because he took 3rd at the New York City Marathon just a couple of years ago and has basically stayed in great shape since. So I knew he had, and he ran one of his best times ever. And, of course, he started out on the track years ago and has moved up. So, so funny, though, I saw Meb's brother, Howie, and I went over to Howie and said, Meb should have stuck around 4 more years. He could have run with Abdi today. And he kind of laughed. He said, yeah, that's true, but he's busy with other stuff now.
Well, Abdi Rahman. And here's my story about him. I was in a taxi cab coming from, I don't know, maybe Houston. And the cab driver, I looked at him and I said, "Are you from Somalia?" And he was taken aback and he said, "How did you know?" I said, "Well, you look like Abdurrahman." And, "Oh, I know that guy."
Yeah, well, he's a famous guy who's now moved to the U.S. and he's been a great runner for the last 20 years. God bless him. He pulled it out. And, it was funny. He had to sprint towards the end. And I interviewed him. And I said, being 40, you still got some speed when you need it. He said, "Yeah, I do." Because he beat Kawir by just like 3 seconds. And he was looking back and he sprinted in to get that third spot.
Well, it's fun to watch it, and it's fun to see it on television, but you were there, so congratulations.
Well, that's why I'm Mr. Ubiquitous. I'm there somewhere, but, being back in Atlanta, downtown, I hadn't been down there down at Centennial Park in about 17, 18 years. We used to do the indoor championships at the Georgia Dome, which has now been torn down as the Mercedes Dome, and I had not been out to the Olympic Torch. We stayed out there, and they've got it up on a high pedestal and everything. And the stadium where we did our track and field, it was torn down. They got a baseball stadium. They're going to tear that down. They gave it to Georgia State after the Atlanta Braves left town, went up to Fulton County. So they've got a baseball stadium there, and they have the warm-up track that the Atlanta Track Club behind the stadium that they have fixed up and are planning to start having high school and college track meets there.
Well, kudos to the Atlantic Track Club and also for the folks who decided to light the Olympic flame during the trials.
Well, that was great. That's what should be done. It's good to see. That's why you have this stuff, to use it in special occasions. That was awesome. They did that. It was definitely a big thrill for the runners to see that going, the Olympians out there running and to see that flame going. That's what it's about, Sure, it's a legacy, but when you have a special occasion, why not light it and use it? And the rings are still across the road there. And, they did the marathon the next day for the citizens, and they said they ran out that way. And, of course, it wasn't lit. But there's a variety of things in the city there for the legacy. And Centennial Park has been added on to and improved. So it's a much larger park than it was during the Olympics or even, 18 years ago. They've definitely made it a world-class park in the center of the city. So that was really cool. Everything started and finished right there. That was pretty cool.
So for the top 3 men, top 3 women, it's on to Tokyo. Thank you, Gary.
For sure. Yep. It was great being there. Great being back home. Yep.